friends, I'd like to share with you this week that we have been celebrating with the readings of Genesis for the past few Sundays. And today is a special sermon study that we look on the marriage rituals that can be seen in Genesis and one particular reading in Exodus. And we're going to share with you an interview with a member of St. Jude's Church. Her name is Miss Lisa Belnavis Edwards, and she's sharing a particular incident, an experience she had. Her brother got married to a Kenyan woman from a particular tribe called the Kikuyu tribe, and herself and her father and her brother had to travel to Kenya to meet with the bride-to-be's parents and the rituals that they had to go through, the marriage ceremony. Now, I'm going to share with you the similarities between what is happening in Exodus with these marriage rituals in Exodus and what exists in Kenya to this very day. And we're also going to compare those rituals with our own understanding of marriage here in Jamaica or in the Western world. And let us see what we can learn from this experience. All right. So, Lisa, you shared with me last Sunday that you had an experience with your brother who got married to is a Kenyan.
Yes.
And what kind of tribe?
Kikuyu.
Kikuyu. Okay. And you were sharing some wonderful experiences of what it was like to go through the marriage ritual in that context. Well, tell us what you can from the beginning.
Okay.
How it all started.
All right. So my brother and his wife met in North Carolina. They were at school together. So that means that they would have bypassed all the previous part of the ritual. But what the ritual calls for is that he was supposed to have introduced himself to the family first before he started courting.
Okay.
So at the point when we went to Kenya to do the wedding, they advised us that we had to get that part done.
Mm-hmm.
So they had us waiting outside. So we got into the village though, went into Kiambu,
Mm-hmm.
and so we went into the village and we got to the house, but they would let us into the house. So we had to do that part of the ceremony where the man introduces himself to the family and says this is the reason that he's there. So my father had to be acknowledged. So one of the elders from the community, they said that they noticed that he's at the gate.
Right.
So could he please indicate why he's there?
Wow.
So he said, well, I've come to introduce myself to the father of the house because my son has seen a young lady that he's interested in.
So your father had to do that?
My father had to do that, right. And then he also had to bring gifts. So at that point, I think we would have given maybe the equivalent of 1 goat or 2 goats or something at that point to say that we're coming with bearing gifts, right.
So did your father had to learn what to say?
Well, they kind of told us just before.
Oh, wow, right.
Right.
So you just,
right. So they recognized the Father Damien, being Jamaican and completely outside the whole thing. I said, okay, we're going to explain to you what happens here.
Right.
So they did that, and they said, Daddy, you need to get up and say, this is the reason why you're here. Your son wants to meet your daughter.
Right.
So he stood up and he said, yes, we saw a fine young lady, and my son is interested in meeting her because he would like to build a life for himself, and he thinks that she's a good option.
Now, this first clipping that we heard from Lisa is sharing the story of how her father had to enter the community and also to make his presence known, as well as share his intent, why he's there. Not Lisa's brother who hopes to marry the young girl, but Lisa's father. Lisa's father speaks on behalf of his son, and he has to make his intent known to the community and also offer some initial gifts. The gifts represent an offering, an initiation process to begin the process. I come in peace. I come for a particular good purpose. I come for goodwill. And notice you see the same dynamic in Genesis 24, where Abraham's servant, when he entered the community, of course, he made his presence known. He couldn't help but make his presence known with all those camels that he brought with him, 10 camels. And additionally, he gave Rebecca a few gifts at the initial stage, but he also had to wait until he was accepted when Rebecca's brother Laban had to come out and ushered him home, tell him to come to our home. You see the same thing in Exodus 12, when after Moses helped Jethro's daughter, and he said it was 7 daughters, Moses saved them from some unscrupulous persons, and Jethro's daughters ran back home and told their father, And their father said to him, well, go and welcome him home. Notice these men can't just enter the home of the in-law in the initial stage. And you might see bits and pieces of that too, in terms of the initial gifts and the arrangement being made in Genesis 29, the story of Jacob and Laban, where Jacob offers his intent to marry Rachel. Let's go a step further.
And then they said to him, all right, well, let's see if you know who it is that you really wanted and wanted to meet. So they paraded out now, 5 young ladies. 5, well, we don't know if they were young ladies, we didn't see, because they were covered from head to toe. And they were in the, like, the colors, they were out of reds and blues and stuff, bright colors, so they were covered from head to toe.
They were veiled.
Veiled. So they all came out and they were there and they said, well, if your son can tell us which of the young ladies he saw, we'll be fine, he can. But we'll talk.
But he's not able to see the face.
He's not able to see the face, right? So I'm guessing that my understanding of it is that's how she is. So they're saying you can't have been looking at her face alone, you had to have been noticing who she was.
Right.
So, we were going by body shape, so so what we did was that we had a quick huddle as a family that look here, how we're going to figure out who she is. And then we got a message from one of the ladies inside, look for the shoes. We'll keep the shoes open so you can't see.
So hold on. What if you made a mistake and chose the wrong?
Right. Well, how the tradition goes, how the tribe operates, that if you choose the wrong one, you have to marry that one still. So there was an uncle that happened to a few years before, right? Because we were taking it for a joke, and then afterwards one of the elders came and said, look, it's no joke anymore, because this uncle had to marry, and he ended up marrying 2 women. So he married the wrong one first, and then a couple years later he was allowed to marry the other one. The story gets more interesting. Now Lisa's brother had to identify the woman he wishes to marry, and the family brought out all the single women, unmarried women in the family, and they're all veiled. You notice that in Exodus 24 verse 65, Rebecca veiled herself as soon as she recognized she was about to meet her future husband, Isaac. And veiling is still practiced in our Western world today. It is used as a symbolism of purity, and it's also, a part of the woman waiting until the right moment to reveal herself to her partner and for the partner to see her beauty. Now, this is also captured in that story that Lisa shared. Only difference is that he has to ensure he chooses the right woman, the woman if he knows her pretty well, if he saw her, he ought to choose the right person. But notice it becomes quite a bit of a comical affair for us in the Western world if you choose the wrong person. And she did share that has happened, and the chief of the community gave her an example and pointed the man who that happened to. Notice in the story of Exodus 29, this happened to Jacob. However, Laban deceived his son-in-law, but we recognize also what Laban was defending. He says, for any father, you ought to allow your first daughter to be married first, and then you progress in that line. The second one shouldn't be married before the first. And that was a custom he's highlighting of that time. And it's still a custom, as Lisa shared, in that section of Kenya. So let's take it. So I think that's why. So my brother was very nervous at that point.
Yeah.
And so he took his time and he walked around, and eventually, so I kind of pointed to him. I was like, "You should do this one." And eventually, so he said, "Okay," and he picked that one. And so he's allowed now to unveil her.
Right.
And it was her, and then fine. But you can't, no hugging, no nothing at this point, because you still have not really met each other. And that's according to the custom. So yeah, that happened, and then they took them back inside. And at that point, we ate and everything else, So and then they're being hospitable, and then at some point they said when they are ready, they will call us inside to discuss the dowry.
So when the meal that you were having was just with the family or with the
This was just a community. This was a community on the outside, right?
Wow.
Right.
So it's a big
thing. The entire community is involved from beginning to end. From that portion right into the wedding itself, they're involved in the entire thing.
Wow.
So yeah, so this is a public affair, and they knew that we were coming, and they were all, so there was a tent on the outside, and we were around, And they're pretty much fairly related in that, as I understand it, most of them are related, whether they're cousins or whatever it is in that space, in that village.
So, all right, That's fascinating. So when you have after the meal, you're now going to negotiate how to go to the marriage.
Right.
So how does that work?
Right. So we go through the dowry. So we go inside, and on the inside they separate us according to the ends of the room.
Right.
And the Wezai, which is the Council of Men, Council of Elders,
Okay.
they are taking part in the negotiation on behalf of her family, and we are on our side. So at first I wasn't allowed to go in because it's supposed to be a Council of Men.
Right.
However, because Damien, they came out and they explained to me that Damien was underrepresented because they had 5 or 6 on their side, and they only had the one gentleman and his father. His father, who doesn't really know all of the procedures, and the one guy who lives there, but still is only one person. So they said to me if I wanted to come in, myself and my mother, we would come in and we would be able to take part. So I said sure, and I came in and I sat on his side. Now the father of the girl is not allowed to speak because I do not want him to represent his own interests. Okay. So the Wezai is supposed to be representing the interests of the community, not just of the family. And in the same way, on our side though, the representative that we chose to speak, which would have been Damien's best friend there, he was the one who chose to speak, not my father either, because again, it cannot be the representative, it cannot be their interests that they're representing the common interests of the entire group. So he was representing the interests of our family. Okay. Right. So when that started, the first thing that they said to us is, okay, you've come here, you know, and yes, you brought a gift, but let us see what you're made of. You know, what do you do? What can you offer? What do you think you can offer to this family? Why do you think that you could come and take away a daughter? And so, you know, we say, all right, well, you know, we are, you know, he's properly employed, he's a student of so and so and so, and he has brought gifts, he has brought things to show that he's willing to support her, he's able to support her. That is where they started. Can you support a daughter? Wow. Right. So you have to prove your worth. Right, you have to prove your worth. So because we are foreigners, we came with money, and that money represented cows and goats. So I think it was like 5,000 Kenya shillings, 500 Kenya shillings for a cow, and I went 300 for a goat. So we had, you know, we had money. So we had to do noise that so we got. Goats and cows are the big currency. So we had envelopes that they would give us, and on the envelope was okay, we'd write, okay, we're doing 50,000 Kenya shillings for this, and we put money in the envelope and seal it up and hand it over to the Wezai.
As Lisa continues to share the story, we learn about the Wezai, which is a council that exists predominantly of the elders of the community, and women are involved in that as well. And the Wezai are a group of persons who will ensure that the negotiation of this marriage will benefit all in a fair way. And notice the husband, or should I say rather, the father of the bride is not involved. The parents of the bride are not involved, as they might most likely negotiate for their own well-being. But the council, the community, negotiates so that all goes well for everyone. The gifts that are brought are especially to show your ability to care. So the groom must show that he is serious about marriage and he is willing to care for this daughter of this community. And the Wezai will ensure of that if you are going to take a daughter of ours, you must be able to provide for her and care for her. And Lisa got involved as a woman simply because the family did not have enough representatives, or should I say the groom did not have enough representatives, and so they invited her, which was a very generous gesture on behalf of the Wezai. The cows and goats, interestingly friends, are currency. Now, in the Genesis stories, in Genesis 24, there was no currency of animals, but there were currency of gold and silver and ornaments. In Genesis 29, Jacob offered the currency of labor. He will work for 7 years to earn, to earn Rachel's hand and to earn the right to marriage. And we learn that in each culture there are different things that you can utilize as your currency. So in this particular story with Lisa's brother, the currency were animals. But as you can see in the Old Testament, the currency could be other things as well.